Hello YouTube, my name is Christian Lopez. If you've been to my channel before, welcome back, and if you haven't, welcome. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to lower your car on coilovers. Now, my car is already pretty low as it is, although I am going to be dropping it up front about 1/4 of an inch and dropping it in the rear probably about 1/4 of an inch as well. So yeah, let's get started. Now the first step is going to be jacking the vehicle up and putting it on jack stands. Now I'm just going to do the right side first, adjust it, and then go to over the left side and adjust it. That way I can just put 2 jack stands up on each side of this jack, go to the rear, adjust the rear, go to the front, adjust the front, drop it down, and then switch over to the other side. So since I don't have my impact with me, well, I do have my air compressor with my impact, but I don't want to charge it up and everything. What I'm going to be doing is, while the car is still on the floor, I'm going to take my 19mm socket with my ratchet and basically break the nuts loose on the wheels. Now, I'm not going to loosen them and take them all the way out. You're not going to do that. You'll damage your car. But I'm just going to break the nut loose. That way when I get it jacked up in the air, they'll come off very easily. As you can see, we are now in the wheel well. The wheel is off and I have good visibility to the coilovers. We have 2 nuts on the coilover body. We have 2 nuts on the coilover body. The bottom nut is the locking nut and the top nut is the adjusting nut. Now, you can see there's a small red scribble right there. There's also one right here. This marks off, that way I know whenever I turn the adjusting nut or the locking nut, I can see and count how many times it's been turned. Now, I've already done this in the past, and I know that 14 full turns equals 1 inch of travel. And basically what I did with that was I took a tape measure from the locking nut, measured 1 inch down, took a mark on the thread, put a dot, as you can see right here, like a red dot, on the locking nut, and then turned it and counted how many times it took to reach 1 inch. So I know on the coilovers that are on my vehicle, 14 turns equals 1 inch of ride height change. Whether it's up or down, 14 turns will equal 1 inch of ride height change. Now what I'm going to be doing is I do want to drop the rear about 1/2 inch, which means that I will need to turn the adjusting nut 7 turns down. Now, one way to adjust the locking nut is to actually raise the adjusting nut. Because I do not have both of the adjusting wrenches, I do need to buy a smaller one. They are different sizes, so this one doesn't fit on the bottom one. So what I do is I take the top adjusting wrench, get it set up, and then I turn it to the right, raising the adjusting right there. Now that loosened the locking nut, or it should have. And since I don't have a bottom nut, I actually use a flat chisel, which isn't the best thing because it can damage the threads on the nut itself. But because I don't have the bottom adjusting nut, I just use a flat chisel with a hammer to loosen it. And I go careful because I don't want to damage it. And there we go, we are now loose, as you guys can see. And right there, the red dots do line up. Hopefully you guys can see that. There and there. So what I'm going to do is count 7 down. So we're going to go 1. Now I can take a tape measure here and double check, although I do know it's 7 turns, so I don't need to. But as a, to double check your process, you can take a ruler and just measure in between these 2 nuts to make sure that that is a 1/2 inch drop. Now I can basically just take this thing down to that locking nut, or I can count as well and just make sure I know what I'm doing here. Now it does take a little bit more effort to turn this top one because it does have the preload of the spring on it. And we are now at 7 turns, and as you can see, these pretty much line perfectly up with each other. That's because they were marked well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten this locking nut. What you can do if you have both your wrenches is take the top wrench, hold, take your bottom wrench, and then tighten. Although since I don't have that, I actually just use my punch right here, and you can see where I have pushed in before, and then sometimes the adjusting nut will stay in place as I do this. although it's not staying in place perfectly. So I'll just put this wrench right here. And it makes it more difficult because I don't have both wrenches. Perfect. And now the locking nut is tight against the adjusting nut, and that shouldn't move. And now we have moved on to the front suspension. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I already have been rubbing slightly on the front with my inner plastics. I could just leave it the way it is, but instead of dropping it a 1/2 inch, I'm only going to drop it 1/4 of an inch. Although lowering the rear end would bring the front ride height up very slightly, so it won't mess with it too much, but I'm actually just gonna lower the front end 1/4 of an inch. Now, since I know that it takes 14 full turns to adjust the ride height by 1 inch, I know that to adjust my suspension 1/4 of an inch, I would have to drop it 3.5 turns. Now, this is because of now it completely depends on the thread pitch of each coilover. That's why I say it's best to make a mark on your locking nut, measure 1 inch, and then see how many turns it takes to reach that. That way you know how many turns it would take for your car to have 1 inch of difference on the ride height, but on mine it is 14. So I am gonna be lowering this 3.5 inches, or no, 3.5 turns to equal 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm actually just fast forwarding this section because lowering the front is the exact same premise as lowering the rear. So that is the end of the video. Now I am pretty sure I'm voicing myself over right now because the music in the background is extremely loud and I don't want to get copyrighted or get my video taken down because of the music in the background. Hopefully you guys can't tell. I think I'm a pretty good voiceover actor, hoping things match up. But yeah, that is how to adjust the coilovers on your vehicle. It's pretty much universal for any car, although I did it on my Mazda Miata. So in case you're going, oh, that car's familiar, well, everyone knows what a Mazda Miata looks like. But thank you guys so much for watching. At the end of my video, I'm going to have a few click-through links to a few of my other videos if you'd like to check me out. Hopefully you guys can like, rate, comment, subscribe, and share my video if you can. As always, thank you for watching, and have a great day.